Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The 30 Rock Book, inside the iconic show From Blerg to EGOT, by Mike Rowe. Narrated by Mike Rowe. To Christiana, my spectacular wife, thank you for being the Liz to my Chris, and thankfully not a Hazel. Introduction. 7 seasons of super specific weirdness. 30 Rock was the show that made Saturday Night Live head writer Tina Fey a bona fide star. It was always a ratings underdog, but one that fought its way into the hearts of viewers season after season. Coming on the air after the end of Friends, the show embodied an idea that was revolutionary at the time. It was better to be funny than to make an audience swoon or to tie characters up in romantic entanglements. What set 30 Rock apart, besides Tina Fey's distinctive view on the world, was the show's obsession with hyper-specific jokes, from Liz Lemon's much-memed night cheese to cutaway music video earworms proclaiming it's never too late for now. In the comedy world, those are often called 1 or 2 percenters, the jokes that will only work for 1 or 2% of the people out there, but for that audience, the jokes really work. When you're in that group, you feel like there's a show that's finally talking to you, just you, for a moment. That 2% was enough to earn the show 7 seasons and numerous awards. But with 30 Rock, it wasn't just the type of jokes, it was the pace. The show never paused to wait for you to catch up. It would continue throwing jokes at you so fast that even if you missed what a few of them were going for, you'd still be laughing from the one before that. It's an approach to comedy that wasn't usually done in sitcoms, which had traditionally been shot with a multiple camera setup, filmed before a live audience. Those shows had to make sure their setups and punchlines were so super clear that every member of the audience could catch them, then pause for extended laughter, the kind that makes people feel like they aren't alone. The Simpsons, since it was animated and had no studio audience or laugh track, was able to fit in more jokes, but it took mainstream TV a long time to catch on to the possibilities dropping the laugh track could bring. Where 30 Rock's contemporary The Office used the lack of an audience to allow awkwardness to hang in the air, 30 Rock pulled you in. This was not a lie back and enjoy yourself show. This was a, you better sit on the front of your couch or you will miss 12 amazing jokes that you never saw coming show. 30 Rock was part of a generation of single-camera sitcoms that popularized a denser joke format, and it was the most packed of them all. The show would let Fey deliver commentary about her time on SNL, network execs, and everything else she had to deal with as a creative person in comedy at a major TV network. Liz Lemon became the ultra-relatable nerd who'd won at life, the underdog who'd blossomed and finally achieved everything she wanted. She was someone who got ahead because she worked hard and cared a lot about what she was doing. It reflected Tina's intense drive, and her awkwardness made all those viewers who felt just as awkward over the years, which is basically everyone, latch onto her. This book is about how 30 Rock survived tough competition and the changing network TV landscape year after year. The true stories and behind-the-scenes battles that often turned into plot lines, and how it found its voice while becoming a critical favorite and beloved cult classic. It will explore the castings that almost were and glimpse awkward and heartfelt moments between cast and crew, drawn together in their quest to create top-notch comedy. It tells the story of 30 Rock primarily based on nearly 50 interviews I conducted with members of the show's cast, guest stars, writers, directors, producers, and crew, as well as TV critics, personal assistants, and more, as I investigated what was behind the jokes that made me laugh so hard my face hurt. My extensive research also includes material from archival interviews I conducted with members of the 30 Rock family, DVD commentary, books, and other published interviews. I used to write and perform sketch comedy at several Los Angeles theaters, so I apply my own experience with writing jokes to examine how next level the team behind 30 Rock really was. And I'll be sharing stories throughout in the words of those who lived it so that you can feel what it was like to be a part of that moment. Some quotes have been edited for conciseness and/or clarity. Congratulations! You're about to take a tour through 30 Rock, I'm your Kenneth the Page, but moderately more self-aware and less likely to tell you you're condemned to eternal hellfire. Ready? Let's go. Creating the 30 Rock pilot. In 2002, Tina Fey was looking for a new project. She'd made a name as the first woman to become head writer of Saturday Night Live, as well as the first woman to anchor Weekend Update since the early 80s. She was proving all the idiots who said that women aren't funny wrong by writing jokes 10 times funnier than those of her male colleagues, leading an SNL renaissance. But while she was well-liked by comedy fans, Fey wasn't quite a star yet. She hadn't made her impact outside of late-night comedy, just beginning to develop the script that would become the feature comedy Mean Girls. And she was working to figure out how to graduate out of SNL to her own projects. This was during the era where she said herself how bad she was in sketches on SNL, including saying so in an actual SNL sketch long before her breakout performance as Sarah Palin in 2008. Daisy Gardner, writer. One thing that's really hard to remember in an era of Fleabag, Broad City, shows with funny women in them, networks didn't take a chance on funny female leads, written and directed by funny female leads. Like, that was Tina. SNL creator and executive producer Lorne Michaels, the behind-the-scenes Yoda to generations of late-night talent, suggested Fey develop a sitcom with NBC. As with the show's other talent, her contract included Michaels and his Broadway video production company being involved in the show's development. Then president of NBC Entertainment Jeff Zucker was also encouraging Fey to do a sitcom, convincing her that this was the right move and convincing Lorne Michaels that she was the next great voice in comedy. Tina signed a contract in 2003 that required her to develop a project for the network. After a few months of working on ideas, she was set to make her pitch to NBC exec Kevin Reilly. Reilly had developed shows for NBC in the 80s and 90s, including Saved by the Bell, Law and Order, and ER. He'd left the network, but continued to develop for them, including shepherding news radio to air, as well as The Sopranos at HBO. Reilly was back at NBC, but it was a time of decline for the network, with NBC in fourth place behind ABC, CBS, and Fox. Longtime hits, including Friends and Frasier, were wrapping up, with decades of Thursday night must-see TV comedy dominance fading. The network responsible for Cheers, Seinfeld, and Will and Grace was desperate for another hit. Fey came to him with her big idea, a show about a cable news producer working with a right-wing host, a la Fox News ratings champ / blowhard Bill O'Reilly. And she wanted the part to be played by liberal actor / activist Alec Baldwin, who'd proven his comedic performance chops through years of guest hosting on SNL. Reilly said thanks, but no thanks. Fey was told she should write something inspired by working on SNL, since her original pitch had just taken her own experiences and put a light veneer over them anyway. At the same time, she'd been working with Michaels on the movie Mean Girls, which went on to be a huge hit, and offered a look at what Fey's voice would sound like outside of SNL. The movie, which debuted in spring 2004, took the feminist ideas that had been part of Fey's work on Weekend Update and put them in a fictional world that fans continue to quote. Fey reluctantly went back to work on her project, writing a new version of the 30 Rock pilot episode. The new direction wasn't lighting a creative fire for her, but she was inspired when her husband, composer Jeff Richmond, suggested keeping that conservative Alec Baldwin character. She realized that in a faux showbiz show, she could add her former SNL castmate Tracy Morgan and create a triangle of different viewpoints going at each other. And the earliest version of 30 Rock was born, which would ultimately take its name from the site of the iconic NBC studio that houses SNL itself. Richmond would continue to collaborate with Fey on the show, providing the score and serving as an executive producer. NBC Universal Television and Lorne Michaels' Broadway Video officially announced that they were shooting a pilot for the untitled Tina Fey project in early 2005, with Michaels attached as an executive producer. Tina Fey had worked hard getting her pilot off the ground, writing it by herself before any other writers were brought in. That's the standard model for a TV show. The original creator crafts the pilot script before hopefully getting the network to agree to actually film it. There's a lot riding on those pilots, with the network deciding whether the show will get to be a whole series based on how the pilot turns out. Someone else also had the idea to do a show going behind the scenes at a Saturday Night Live style late night show, Aaron Sorkin. The high-profile playwright, screenwriter, and TV showrunner had created a highly rated all-time classic with The West Wing for NBC. Now he wanted to do a drama about what goes into making a late-night sketch comedy show. Sorkin always loved getting into what makes a TV show tick. He'd previously created the critically acclaimed Sports Night about a SportsCenter-like cable show, and would later go on to create The Newsroom for HBO, centered on the cable news world. Don Scardino, director. Aaron is one of these guys. When The West Wing started, he would get everybody together when the show went live out on the air. It didn't matter that it was already in the can or anything. He would say, "We're on TV." It's that kind of love for this business, so I know that his heart was in the right place. He wanted Studio 60 to, like he did with West Wing, capture the backstage inner workings of that show. Sorkin's new faux late-night show, originally titled Studio 7 on the Sunset Strip before ultimately having its title number bumped up to Studio 60, prompted controversy behind the scenes from the beginning, with Tina Fey and Lorne Michaels less than excited to have Sorkin moving in on their turf. He was seen as an outsider, not just to late night, but to NBC, as he was developing the show for outside production company Warner Brothers. Bradley Whitford, Studio 60 actor. I loved 30 Rock. Tina Fey, Liz Lemon. That goddamn Studio 60 almost killed us. Whitford ran into Tina Fey at a Television Critics Association event. Bradley Whitford. I love Tina Fey. I was just saying, oh my God, good luck. She's pointing at me and she's like, what? Are you kidding? It's you guys. It's you guys. Speculation at the time indicated that NBC surely wouldn't pick up both shows about late night TV. Alec Baldwin said he'd be stunned if NBC picked up both of them. Alec Baldwin, Jack Donaghy. And ours has the tougher task as a comedy, because if it's not funny, that's it. Whereas a drama could start off as a hard-hitting medical show about real issues, and before you count to 3, it's about who's fucking who. When NBC broke with expectations and put both shows on the schedule, 30 Rock quickly looked like the dark horse between these two competing programs. How could two shows about the same thing on the same network both be hits? It was a ready-made battle to the death. NBC was playing the parent who knew they weren't supposed to say who their favorite child was, even if everyone else knew who the favorite child was. Kevin Riley, NBC executive. I saw the problem coming from a mile away, but these are very particular artists who write what they care about. The network had a relationship to rebuild with Aaron Sorkin and needed to keep him from leaving for the competition. They also had a star in the making with Tina Fey, whom they'd been grooming for bigger things, as well as a relationship both cozy and successful with SNL ruler Lorne Michaels. Riley told Michaels in advance that the network was picking up Studio 60, trying to reassure him that the new show wouldn't be a copy of SNL. As the shows were being developed, Aaron Sorkin and director/executive producer Thomas Schlamme asked Lorne Michaels to let them come watch SNL being filmed for a week to learn more about how the show worked. Lorne declined. Adam Bernstein, director. Among the inside circle of the SNL crowd, there was a lot of displeasure over Studio 60 and how it was borrowing from the same territory. But obviously, 30 Rock ended up having a life. Whitford said that he and the rest of the Studio 60 team didn't feel that same sense of competition with 30 Rock. They had been hopeful, thinking this could be opening up a new type of show with room for more than one version. Bradley Whitford. We were embarrassed because we felt a little misinterpreted. I remember going, there's a lot of law shows, there's a lot of cop shows. I didn't like being in that position, that they thought we were cocky bastards. We heard that they thought we were full of shit or something. Don Scardino. I love Aaron, but suck it. 30 Rock was the latest in a long line of projects from former SNL stars, and seemed unlikely to become a smash hit for the network. Studio 60 came from a man still considered to be one of the best writers in television, not to mention writing A Few Good Men and The American President. This was his triumphant return to TV, and NBC proved excited to welcome him back even after he left The West Wing at the end of its 4th season and dealt with a somewhat public drug problem. And while not as directly as 30 Rock pulled from Tina's life, Studio 60 was built on Aaron Sorkin's experiences. He was even working with some of the same cast members who'd made The West Wing so beloved. He had his own juicy real-world drama with Matthew Perry as an avatar of his fired TV genius dealing with a drug problem. Perry's character in a relationship with a religious star that mirrored Sorkin's own with actress/singer Kristen Chenoweth. Bradley Whitford. The shooting schedule on The West Wing was notoriously brutal, and I was exhausted. Everybody was telling me that Aaron had written this amazing script. I didn't want to read it because I didn't want to be in the position where I would want to do it, or feel actor desperate about it and put Aaron in that position again, because he had given me the part of a lifetime in Josh Lyman on The West Wing. He said, "Have you read it?" I said, "No, because I know I'm going to like it." He said, "It really feels like your voice. Will you read it?" I read it, and I loved it. I had a complicated conversation with my family about it. I thought to myself, well, this is what you do. You're a horse at a racetrack. You love this. You know it's going to be an intense commitment, but you have this writer at the top of his game. Don Scardino. We were the bastard child. Studio 60, after all of Aaron's successes, was the big kahuna. We were both on NBC, and we were just going to be the crappy one. Robert Carlock, co-showrunner. We moved to New York, having a lot of confidence that we could do a really funny and good show, but thinking, just from an actuarial standpoint, that especially with Studio 60 out there and having billboards in Times Square and on Sunset Boulevard, that we would be back in Los Angeles before too long. Nate Cordry, Studio 60 actor. We never considered them to be an opponent. We were sure they would last maybe half a season, just as a favor to Lauren and Tina. Saturday Night Live was so successful that NBC was like, okay, we'll give you this half-hour show, but really, we're investing in Aaron Sorkin. I did not expect 30 Rock to have any kind of legs. Scott Adsit had to audition for the part of Pete Hornberger on 30 Rock, even though he was friends with Tina and a longtime improv collaborator. He was also auditioning at the same time for Studio 60 and had to make a choice. Scott Adsit, Pete Hornberger. I couldn't sign the contract on both, so I had to decide which show to go with. The show about SNL with Aaron Sorkin, the guy who's winning Emmys and created The West Wing, or the show about SNL by the head writer of SNL, who some people are aware of, some aren't. John Rigi, writer/director. Everybody loved Tina, but it was such an unknown quantity, whereas Studio 60 was Sorkin, this big, buzzy show. Judd Hirsch was on. There were a lot of big names on that. We didn't really have anybody. Even Alec, at the time, was in a bit of a holding pattern. Scott Adsit. The surefire bet was Aaron Sorkin, but I went with Tina, just because I'd rather spend a day with Tina than Aaron Sorkin. At that point, anyway. Fey's scrappy project continued to move forward. Tracy Morgan had met Tina Fey a couple seasons into working on SNL. He felt that she heard his comedic voice, writing to that on the show and creating classic sketches to let him be his funniest. Morgan's recurring sketches ranged from Brian Fellows' Safari Planet, where he played the enthusiastic animal show host who doesn't know anything about animals, constantly states his own name, and hallucinates the animals ridiculing him, to Astronaut Jones, where he plays an astronaut who happens to act just like Tracy Morgan, hitting on lady aliens. Tracy Morgan, Tracy Jordan. I got a call from Tina. She was like, she's doing this TV show, and she wanted me to play this character that was similar to me, the person, Tracy Morgan. I was on board from day one. Lorne Michaels, executive producer. She knew how well she played off him and with him, and she knew how to write for him. He lived an outsized life at SNL and obviously back in the early days of 30 Rock as well. Much of Tracy's character is based off of who he really is, though he has at times disputed just how much comes from his life, sometimes even refusing to acknowledge that the character was based on him. According to Tracy, the character was based more on show business outrageousness from other performers. Tracy saw what he was doing as a role, not just being himself on camera. Tracy Morgan's former assistant. He once made me drive him around New York City in a Porsche, or some kind of car that costs more than me, and made me keep the roof down. It was November in New York City. He just had a new sound system installed and was blasting Michael Jackson and Prince while driving through Times Square, then getting very pleased when people recognized him, but also a little perturbed. It was 2.5 years after the call with Tina before they started shooting 30 Rock, according to Morgan. After 7 years on SNL, a standard contract for SNL stars who have historically been required to stay with the show for at least 7 seasons if the show wants them there, Morgan left to star in his own sitcom. But the Tracy Morgan Show failed to take off, getting canceled after a single season. He had other small roles during this time, including voicing a dog named Woof on a TV series called Where My Dog's At. Kevin Latson, prop master. When I met Tracy, he came to me in a very humble manner and said, "I've been out of work a while, and it sure is good to be back to work." I said, "Listen, I hear you. Anytime I get to work and have fun, that's gravy." Meanwhile, Alec Baldwin had been a high-level actor for decades. He'd started out in soap operas before bigger roles in movies like Beetlejuice, ultimately breaking out as a star in The Hunt for Red October. He created an all-time memorable role in Glengarry Glen Ross with just minutes of screen time, delivering the famous "Coffee is for closers" monologue. He brought a gravitas to everything he did, but had proven his strength in comedy, hosting Saturday Night Live with classic sketches like the faux public radio show seen in Sweaty Balls, co-written by Robert Carlock. As much as Fey wanted Baldwin, he didn't necessarily think making a television show was the best use of his time. When he was approached in 2006 about doing TV, it was something that he'd never wanted. He was a film and theater actor before the rise of streaming, when the world still turned its nose up at the smaller screen. But he also didn't mind the potential paycheck. Nathan Lane, Eddie Donaghy. He kept saying, "I need to do a series." I said, "I know, when one of them works, it's like winning the lottery. So I wish you luck. I've not had that good fortune." Matthew Broderick, Cooter Burger / James Riley. When Alec was going to be doing it, he was complaining bitterly. I think he wasn't sure. Adam Bernstein. Alec Baldwin ended up being pivotal to the show, but they never really had him. When we did the pilot, he was just a guest star. He wasn't committed to being on the show full-time. Baldwin eventually agreed to do the pilot, but all he would commit to if the pilot was eventually picked up by the network was 6 episodes a season for up to 6 seasons. Once the pilot was ready to move into production, a number of directors were in contention to direct the episode. The show went with Adam Bernstein, who directed sitcom pilots for Scrubs and oddball cult favorites like Strangers with Candy and The Adventures of Pete and Pete, while also having experience working on the police procedural Homicide: Life on the Street. Adam Bernstein. I didn't have any pre-existing relationship with Tina or the SNL people. Maybe they had some interest in me because, with half-hour comedy pilots, they're usually multi-camera or single-camera, and directors tend to get pigeonholed. It's hard for a director to move from one list to the other, but Bernstein was one of the rare directors on both, thanks to the variety of projects he did early in his career. Still, he wasn't the only one up for the gig. Paul Feig, director. I was directing a lot of television, and I don't know if they were going to hire me, but I had been sent the pilot script to consider. I thought it was really funny. I've always been a fan of Tina Fey's, but I didn't pursue it. It was before television developed a rep for being home to the best storytelling, where you could go in-depth with a character over 8 or 10 episodes of tightly written TV. That meant that getting together the best team possible for the pilot was a tough mission for the New York-based production. Bernstein brought a number of crew members he'd worked with before to the show, while producer Jerry Kupfer was hard at work putting the rest of the team together. He'd previously worked with Bernstein and some of the others on the eccentric Nickelodeon classic The Adventures of Pete and Pete. One of Kupfer's key hires? Prop master Kevin Ladson. Kevin Ladson. People in my union only wanted to do feature films. I could hardly get a crew. I had misfits, ne'er-do-wells. I'd take anybody I could get. It's a problem that got better after the pilot, but the show still gave more inexperienced crew members a chance. Cinematographer Vanya Cernuel had done just one TV show, Ugly Betty, and had never shot on an actual soundstage before. When he got the interview for 30 Rock, he didn't expect to get it, and even left the country to work on a movie in Europe. But when he got the call for 30 Rock, he rushed back to the States. Michael Trim had a similar story. Michael Trim, cinematographer. I started doing TV because my commercial career had died, because all the people I worked with in commercials either retired or had heart attacks all at once. The pilot was set to start filming in summer 2005, in between seasons of SNL, but Fey got pregnant with her first child, delaying the shoot until January 2006. While Tina, Tracy, and Alec became the core of the show, the original cast had one other key element. Fey's longtime real-life friend and SNL co-star Rachel Dratch, who originated the role of The Girly Show star Jenna. If you don't remember her playing the part, that's okay. The original version of the pilot, which filmed with Dratch, never aired. While that pilot was similar to the one that eventually aired, large portions of it were reshot before it premiered. The original version of the show relied more heavily on the show-within-a-show's sketches. NBC even planned to put full versions of the sketches up online, announcing that publicly, but it never ended up happening. That version also relied more heavily on the relationship between Liz and Jenna. When you watch them in their original scenes together, you can feel that genuine connection. Instead of the actress with a capital A vibe Jane Krakowski later brought, you see Dratch's Jenna amazed and excited to be a part of this show. She's relatable without the hilarious entitlement that Krakowski embodied. Dratch's Jenna even had a different last name to fit the original star, playing Jenna DiCarlo. Scott adds it. That was just like coming home, because Tina and Rachel and I were like siblings for a long time. Dratch is someone you can totally put all of your trust into, as a person and as a performer. But test audiences didn't respond to Dratch. Notes from the writer's room brought together after that pilot detail the reaction. Some changes, due to testing. Negative responses to the show within the show. The only time we see the show, it's bombing. We don't see Rachel be funny. We only see her screw up. People didn't believe Rachel as the star of her own show. Like to find someone else to play the actress in The Girly Show. Rachel Dratch, original Jenna. After we shot the pilot, I got a call from my agent. They're going in a different direction. Michael Trim. Rachel was incredible. I could not believe when I heard that they got rid of Rachel. Who knows what goes on there? Doug Abel, editor. Her style of comedy doesn't seem totally grounded in reality. She's a bit of a broad comedian. Is 30 Rock this gritty New York thing? Or is it this more goofy pretend television world? Things didn't quite mesh. Fey had originally managed to cast her show with real-life friends like Dratch and Adsit, as SNL co-star Tracy Morgan and Alec Baldwin brought the star power. Now her plan was falling apart, with the fate of the show hanging in the balance. The network agreed to pick up the show as a series only after Dratch was replaced with Jane Krakowski. She was brought in with the network's eyes on her being more of a fit as a sitcom star, someone with decades of TV experience, including 5 years on the Fox dramedy Ally McBeal. Andrew Guest, writer's assistant. Tina's hand was forced. The character Jenna Maroney fulfills all the criteria that the testing was looking for in terms of somebody you believe was starring in the show and having a much stronger comedic voice. Doug Abel. Jane Krakowski, she's great, but I really love Rachel Dratch. I was bummed when I learned that she wasn't going to be part of it, and it just seemed cheesy. Corporate came down like, no, we want somebody who's a big blonde lady. Alan Sepinwall, TV critic. It's a shame that they had to get rid of Dratch. If you look at that pilot versus the one with Krakowski, Jenna is almost instantly much more of a cartoon figure than Dratch's character was. With Krakowski sliding in, the writers looked at giving the character less time, with a greater emphasis put on the show being a three-hander focused on Liz, Tracy, and Jack. That was thanks in part.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?